Let's now talk about web and user experience design. As we discussed earlier, your challenge has moved well beyond just designing individual websites. You now have to design richly personalized app experiences that run across devices and across browsers. Designing for multiple screens presents its own unique set of challenges. You need tools that can quickly lay out your ideas and then output to a variety of targets. To share the latest innovations that we're bringing to web and user experience design, I'd like to welcome up Paul Gubbay. There he is.
Thanks, Brian. Excellent. Okay, let's kick things off by talking about websites. One of the things that new web designers ask us all the time when they're looking to build a website is this question of to code or not to code. And depending on who you talk to, which company you talk to, which product team you talk to, you'll get a different answer every time. But we don't believe that there is a right or a wrong answer to this question. If you're the kind of person who thinks in code, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then you're going to love the new 64-bit version of Dreamweaver. Over the last couple of years, we've really modernized Dreamweaver. The main stage is now an editable live view that's built directly on top of WebKit. We've integrated Adobe Reflow technology directly into Dreamweaver, so you have first-class support for responsive design. And I'm thrilled to announce that next year we'll be integrating a lightweight, super-fast code editor that some of you may be familiar with directly into Dreamweaver. So if you love to code, we've absolutely got you covered. But we know that many of you do not think in code first, you think visually. And for you, we created Adobe Muse. Now, instead of an editable live view, Muse just has a free-form stage, just like Photoshop or Illustrator or InDesign. And instead of a code editor, the Muse promise is you design, we code. And designers have loved that with millions of websites that have been created in Adobe Muse. But there's one thing that you've told us that's been missing. And that is the ability to create a responsive website in Muse. Never before has there been a custom free-form design tool that would allow you to output a responsive website until now. And I'm thrilled to show you guys exactly what that looks like. But to get started, I'm actually going to start on an iPad. Now, I've got a buddy of mine. He lives up in Seattle. He owns a hot dog cart called Sea Dog. Has the finest of all condiments, which is cream cheese on a hot dog. Don't knock it until you've tried it. And he asked me to create him a website, and I was coming back in the plane, had my iPad handy, so I started in Comp. And Eric showed you guys Comp earlier. You can see it's a beautiful tool for being able to design and lay out, create interesting designs. I can lay out a website in here as well, the Comp and the design for that. And I've got my design that I like right now, but I want to add in one more thing. I'm just going to go into my Creative Cloud libraries. I'm going to add in an image of a map, because I want this to be a live map later inside my website where people can find his hot dog cart. And now I'm going to use a brand new feature in Comp. I'm going to use the new Send to Muse button inside of Comp. Now, when I click Send to Muse, what's actually happening is Muse is, Creative Sync is actually working in the background. It's taking all of that content I just created. It's turning it in the cloud into Muse format and sending that over to Muse, so that when I come to my desktop application, I've now got that exact same file inside of Muse. Let's just take a second to see what a good job Creative Sync has done here. As I scan down, you can see what I've got in Muse looks exactly the same way as it did in Comp, except I've already now got a fully functioning website ready to go. This has got to be the easiest way to be able to create a website that's free-form design. Now, in addition to mobile to desktop workflows, Creative Sync, of course, also helps me with desktop to desktop workflows. And in Muse, I can do that now with the new Creative Cloud Libraries panel. So I've been working inside of Photoshop, want to add a hot dog to my website, of course. And so it's very easy to do that in Muse. I now just grab the hot dog right out of my Creative Cloud libraries and place it right on the stage. And you'll notice that I can place this anywhere that I want to, just like I would if I was an InDesign or Illustrator. This is what we mean when we say custom free-form design. So I'm going to place the hot dog right here. That looks great. And now one of the things I want to do when I'm creating a responsive website is I want to use vectors, because they're going to scale and they're going to look good across all screen sizes. Of course, I create my vectors inside of Illustrator, and so naturally I can just go back into Creative Cloud libraries and pull those out. But you'll notice that when I pull out my vectors and I drop them on the page, on the stage, Creative Sync is working again in the background for me, and it's actually converted these directly into SVG without me having to do anything at all. So now I know that this is going to look fantastic. When I put this up on the browser, it's going to look good on any screen size, something I didn't even have to think about. Now, obviously, as a designer, I like to use beautiful typography when I'm building my websites. So if I come down here, I want to add some new fonts in here. I'm going to select some text. And in this new version of Muse, I now have access to all of the Typekit web fonts that are included in my Creative Cloud subscription. This is a first. So if I select the font, not only do I see it at design time, but Creative Sync is working in the background and making sure that Typekit's enabled and that this font will work in the browser at runtime. Again, something I didn't have to think about at all. And to finish this off, I'm just going to go down to the menu section. I'm going to grab one more thing out of my Creative Cloud libraries, some other assets I've built in Illustrator, and in just under a minute, I've already created the mobile version of my website. But when I started this off, I said this was about being able to create responsive websites. And the way we do that in Muse is with this new toolbar and scrubber that we have at the top. Now, if you're familiar with Adobe Reflow, this will look familiar to you. We have taken some of the technology that we pioneered in Reflow, we've integrated into Dreamweaver, and we've integrated into Muse. And just watch how incredibly simple this is. I'm just going to grab that scrubber, and as I drag it out, I'm going to immediately start to see exactly what this website looks like at any screen size that I want. When I get to the screen size that I'm interested in, say right around here, move down. Maybe this doesn't look quite right at this point. All I have to do is add a breakpoint, and now I'm free to design exactly the way that I want to inside of Muse. And move this down a little bit. All I want to do is move some of these settings around. I've got a little bit of extra white space that I don't need. Just grab some of these toppings. Now notice I'm not messing around with HTML, CSS. I don't have out my calculator, figuring out what my grid system is. I'm simply just grabbing all of the elements that I want, moving them exactly where I need to on the page, and in just a couple of seconds, I've now got my tablet version, and I've got my mobile version, all in the same design. Way to go, responsive. Okay, so let me move forward a little bit. I've got another file that I've been working on. As you can see in this version, I have got the desktop, I've got the tablet, and I've got the mobile version. I'll just grab through there. You can see as I move from the desktop right into that mobile version, right into the phone version, all within the one system right there. You can even see I've put in that interactive Google widget, which is easy to do inside of Muse. And the last thing I want to do is I want to export this, turn this into a real website. Let's drop this down. I'm going to call this Adobe CDOG.com. And when I hit OK, in just a couple of seconds, Muse is writing out all of that code. It's creating a fully responsive website for me. Here it is loading up in the browser. Take a look. It looks exactly like it did in Muse. That's the Muse promise, right? You design, we code. But I'm going to grab that browser. Let's start resizing it. As I get down lower, you're going to see there's that tablet view. And if I go down further, there is that phone view. A completely responsive website built in a custom freeform design tool. That's never been done before. We cannot wait to see what you guys create with the latest version of Muse. Okay, so Muse, Dreamweaver, they help you create beautiful, responsive websites. Photoshop lets you design anything that you want to, including comps, mock-ups of some of the most beautiful websites and applications in the world today. But Photoshop designers have been telling us that the bar is rising. More and more ever, you're being asked to not just take a design for one screen, but you have to take a design and make it work across multiple screens, which means you need access to all of your assets so that you can reuse them across all of your designs. And ultimately, you need more, better ways to be able to optimize those assets and share them with your developers. Well, we've been listening, and we've been working really hard. And to show you exactly what I mean, I'd like to invite Zorana up to the stage to share with you how the world's most popular design tool is transforming the way that you design for multiple screens. Zorana.
Thanks, Paul. Hi, guys. Wow, it is so great to be here, to be able to share with you guys the phenomenal improvements that we have for designers in the newest release of Photoshop. Photoshop, come on, guys. You guys use Photoshop? Let's hear it. Thank you. So let's jump right in. Here's a tablet design that I'm working on. And it's looking pretty good. I'm pretty much done with this, but I actually need to move on and create a mobile version of this design. We're all pretty familiar with this process, right? For each different design or iteration, what I'm doing is creating a new file, and then what I'm doing is lining them up side by side here. And for all the assets that I want to use, I'm using the old-fashioned copy and paste, dragging and dropping over, and that's pretty cumbersome and definitely not ideal. So there's two big improvements that I want to talk about today that directly address this pain point. The first one's with Creative Cloud libraries. Now, we've all heard through the power of Creative Sync, we have the ability to store all our assets in a central location so that we can reuse them across our entire design and even share them with other team members so that they can use them too. You told us this is really powerful, but there's one aspect that can use a little improvement. And this isn't actually creating these libraries. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So essentially what I'm doing is for each asset that I want to reuse, I'm individually dragging them over. Whether they're smart objects, whether they're shapes, type styles, color chips, right? Lots of things I can drag over, but I'm doing that individually. Say I wanted to create a style guide for this. There's probably like 50 or 60 layers here. That can take some time. So I'm really excited to say that in the newest release, we make this much easier. I simply choose Add Content from Document, and we collect all the assets that you can actually create in a library, and you can check the ones that you want. In this case, I only want my smart objects. I say Add to Libraries, and boom. You have a new library created, all the assets are brought over and stored in that central location. Now I can reuse these assets. Woo, let's hear it. Makes it super easy. I can reuse these assets now across my entire design and again, share them with my team members. Okay, the second improvement that I want to talk about today. Remember the problem I laid out earlier of needing to create a separate PSD for each iteration of my design? That's totally not ideal, right? Like we're creating 10, 20, sometimes 30 different pages, PSDs, and fumbling between them when we want to see actually the design. No longer is this the case. Something you guys have been asking for a long time, so I really want to hear it. Photoshop has artboards. Woo. Artboards makes it really easy to create multiple iterations of my designs, whether they're pages or multiple devices, all in a single document. Further, it allows me to easily see the flow and the experience across my entire design in one document instead of fumbling between those 10, 20, 30 PSDs. Let's dive in here into these artboards, the mobile designs here, to take a little bit more deeper look at some artboards. All right, artboards inside of Photoshop are essentially a special layer type, which means that content is nested and clipped within the individual artboard. At any point, I can drag any of that over to any other artboard and have it be nested and clipped there, or I can drag it out onto the canvas for later use. Artboards can have specific guides associated with them, right? Because not all pages have the same layout. You see, as I click through here, I have a different guide set up for each artboard. Further, if I move my artboard freely around on canvas, the guides will follow it. I can also create document-level guides. So say I wanted to actually line up my artboards. I can go ahead and drag some of these out, and you can see that it's drawing in a different color. And further, if I move my artboard around, the document guides stay in place, whereas the artboard guides will follow my mouse. All right. Artboards are really easy to create. I can use these handy Add Artboard buttons on Canvas to create a new artboard. But in this particular case, I actually want to just duplicate this because I want the full fidelity of this artboard to be copied over, right? The layers, the layer groups, the vectors, all the positioning. There's only a few elements here that I'm going to select here to delete that I want to update, and everything else stays the same. We'll get back to that in a second. One last thing around artboards I want to talk about is, right, this document has about 30 artboards or so, right? You can imagine how beefy my layers panel just got. Finding the particular layer that I want can be kind of challenging at times. So what we've added is ability to actually filter your layers panel so that it only shows the layers associated with the artboard that I'm working on. Brilliant. Simple. I select the artboard here, filter, and now you can see that as I click through my artboards, it only shows me the layers associated with the artboard that I'm working on, making it much easier to find the layer that I want. I know we all strive for a clean layers panel, right? All right, so let's go ahead and update this last bit here. It's going to go back to my libraries, and remember, through Creative Sync, I was able to add and create a library very easily. I'll go ahead and just drag a couple elements out here to finish up this design. Now, a couple icons I want to drop here at the bottom. We heard from you guys. Photoshop now places and opens SVG files directly. Simply have the SVG files here, drag them into the position that I want, and it's as easy as that. Boom. There you go. This design looks pretty good. I think I'm done with it. I'm at the last point. I need to export some of these assets over to my developer. We've done a huge improvement with Export. Huge overhaul. We've been listening to you guys, and specifically we heard that you guys want an easier way to be able to select multiple layers and export them at different scales. Now it's drop dead easy. Check this out. Say I wanted to export these 4 layers here. I'll go ahead and select them in my panel here, and you can see they're selected. Let me hop into Export. Adding multiple scales is as simple as just clicking these plus buttons here and setting the percentage that I want. I have 50%, 100%, and 200%. My layers here, you guys have been asking for this. Export all, choose a location, and boom. All my assets in the same location at all the scales that I set in that easy workflow. So that's just a little sample of what we have in store in the newest release of Photoshop. I can't wait for you guys to get your hands on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Zorana. So, Photoshop team, doubling down on features that really make it easier for designers to be able to create across multiple screens. So we have time for one more thing that I would like to share with you guys, and I would like to talk about UX design. Now, Photoshop is a great tool for helping you create beautiful visual designs, but UX designers have told us that in addition to that, they also need to create high-fidelity, interactive prototypes. And today, you have to cobble together multiple tools to be able to make this happen. Now, we could add authoring for interactivity into our design products, but honestly, that would take the focus away from what they do best. We think there's a better way. So we created a brand new project codenamed Comet. Comet is a new tool that is laser focused on everything you need to go from design to prototype in one end-to-end system. It's built from the ground up, so it has breakthrough performance that really changes the way that you work. And it combines design and interactivity for the first time in one tool so that you can create an interactive prototype. And to share with you exactly what I'm talking about, I'm thrilled to introduce Sarah Hunt to the stage to share with you guys the brand new Project Comet.
Great, thanks, Paul. I haven't even showed you anything yet. I am so excited to be here to show all of you for the first time on this stage a project we've been working on for the past year codenamed Comet. Comet's a new application from Adobe which lets UX and UI designers create and prototype their designs in a vector design environment. Let me show you a few things that you can do with Comet. I've started designing a mobile application to be able to find pet sitters in different areas. I already have a few artboards set up here, and I'm designing a results screen. I'll go in and just draw in a circle here for some profile headshots, and go in and add some text for the first and last names. Now, in any typical mobile application, you're working a lot with repeating patterns and grids. And with Comet, we're reimagining the tools that you use for UI design. One of my personal favorites is called Repeat Grids. I just grab the objects I want, turn Repeat Grids on, and I can visually repeat elements on the artboard. And I can even go in and I can adjust all the spacing and margins right away so everything is pixel perfect in one shot. Now, we've been thinking a lot about the relationship between content and style. I want to find a different color to use for this text. And when I go in and start adjusting the colors here, you can see that that's live updating for all of those objects that are inside of the grid. But you want the content to be unique. When I go in and start adding some names here, you can see that it's preserving all of those styles I set, so it's really flexible in letting you make changes. Now, I need to be able to add some images to here. I have a few images that I've been collecting for this project over in Finder, and I'll start with a square JPEG of a guy walking his dog, which I think is going to look really good on the home screen. And when I drag this into Comet, I can specifically target the shape I want to drop this into. When I drop it into the circle that's on the home screen, that image imports, non-destructively scales down, and masks the shape I want in a single step. But what if you guys are working with dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of different images? Well, Comet is really smart about the way that it works with your layout content. I have 6 different profile images here that I want to be able to use for those profile pictures. And when I drag all 6 into Comet, all of those import, repeat, mask in a single step. Yeah, it was really just as easy as dragging and dropping from Finder. It's the little things, right? Now, you guys aren't designing for just one screen. You have iOS, Android, Windows, phones, tablets, and desktop screens to worry about in the design process, and we want to make it easier for you to take your designs from screen to screen. To show you an example, I'll make a copy of that grid I was working on and bring it over to a tablet design of this project that I was working on. I already showed you guys how you can adjust this vertically, but you can repeat these elements out horizontally as well. You can notice all that content repeating, but I really want to take advantage of the real estate I get to work with on the tablet. And you can see that as I go in and start making changes, all of the content is updating in real time. So I always know exactly how much space I have to work with. Just move some objects around. Everything is updating for me. Move this image down here. I have a few more pictures from Finder I want to be able to bring over, and I'm done. Now, I want to take a second to tell you guys about performance. We've been treating performance and quality as a very specific feature of Comet. And since Comet is a brand new application built from the ground up, we've been taking advantage of all the latest hardware capabilities, so this thing is fast. Now, it's easy for me to talk about performance when I only have 3 artboards up here on my screen. But inside of this document, I have dozens of artboards which make up the phone screens for this design. And I have dozens of more artboards which make up the tablet screens for this design. And I have even more artboards which make up the desktop screens for this design. Inside of this document, I'm working with hundreds of artboards with thousands of different objects. Right? This performance changes the way that you think about documents and layout. So visually, I'm pretty happy with this design. I think it's starting to look good. But as an interaction designer, you need to create an interactive prototype to really evaluate if going from A to B makes sense. And you can create that interactive prototype inside of Comet. When I go up here and switch into prototyping mode, I can now link together objects with artboards. I want this button to link over to this artboard here, and you can see that I can drag out and target different artboards. I have a few different animation properties that I can control to really go after a native look and feel. I want that to slide left, and I'll give it a little bit of easing. And I want this back button to go back to the home screen. I'll make that slide right. And to show you guys a little bit about what a real prototype is going to look like, I'll link together a few more artboards here. And I've already gone ahead and wired up the rest of this website, so you can, or the rest of this mobile app, so you can see a bit of a sitemap of what this is supposed to look like. But I need to actually see how this is going to behave. When I turn on preview, I have an interactive prototype that I can view on my desktop or my mobile device. And this is going to be awesome for being able to communicate with my team, communicate with project stakeholders, so everyone really understands the interactive intent behind my design. Now, because my prototyping tool is part of my design tool, it's really easy for me to go in and make changes. When I switch back into design mode, to show you an example, I'll play around with a different color for this button. Move this over here. You can see that as I adjust the color wheel, the colors are updating, but my prototype is all still intact. All the interactions work, all the gestures work, everything was updated in real time. I didn't have to go in and rewire everything. It just worked for me. So this, it is pretty awesome, just saying. So this is just a preview of what we've been working on with Comet. We have so much more that we've been working on, and the team and I are really excited to be able to get this in your hands to see what you guys can make with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. What do you guys think of Comet? Pretty awesome, huh? So I'm thrilled to announce that Comet will be available as a public preview, so you can all get your hands on it early next year. In the meantime, you can see the URL that's up on the screen. You can go there to get information about Comet, be able to talk to some of the team, get the latest information, and just give your feedback. We'd love to be able to work with you and get your feedback as we're working on this project. Really excited for you to get your hands on it. So let's wrap it up. Web and UX design. Going through huge changes in the industry. Whether you're creating responsive websites, whether you're designing for multiple screens, whether you're doing UX design work, creating interactive prototypes, we want you to know that we've been listening and we've got you covered. Thank you. Back to you, Brian.
Thanks, Paul. I wish you knew where to buy an accent like Paul's. It's just delightful. Truly amazing innovation taking place in web and UX design, and I think you agree with me, we did some stellar demos there. So we've integrated technology that we pioneered in Adobe Reflow directly into Dreamweaver and Muse. So now you have everything you need in one place to build responsive web experiences. The Photoshop team keeps knocking it out of the park. Artboards, making it easier than ever to design for multiple screens, as well as reimagined export experience, so you can share your assets at any resolution. And finally, we get a sneak peek at Project Comet, our new user experience design tool that lets you go from app design to prototype within one end-to-end solution.